nimehakikishia kwamba tangu ashike nafasi hiyo katika ofisi ya finance, nyinyi mumeona governors wakishika matawi wakisema pesa imechelewa, sio maneno ilisimama. Tunakushukuru, we can see your work. Tungependa pia kushukuru kwa sababu ya mambo ya autonomy ya county assembly. Hivi sasa na kwa muda mrefu tumekuwa tukitegemea as the two arms of government tunategemeana, lakini ile financial independence ambayo umetupea, tutahakikisha kwamba tumejikakamua pia kama legislature increase ile jambo linaitwa absorption rate. Hadi hapo karibu sana, asante.
Mheshimiwa CS, Mheshimiwa MP wa Kisesi, kwa majina naitwa Nixon Cheplong, mimi ni Chief Officer wa Economic Planning, and we want to appreciate you for restructuring the Department of Economic Planning. It is currently working towards the right trajectory and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we continue with our meeting, I know our CS will be finalizing this discussion in the next 1 hour or so, less than that. Sorry, we want to recognize our PSS. You know, PS Economic Planning and your colleague. It looks like it skipped my mind. So Karibuni was in issue. Next time, I'll not forget that. Apologies. I want to invite, I know there is a representative of our senator, Mr. Simon Kemei. Just stand up and wave. Kemei is our manager at the senator's office. So karibu. Ningependa kumkaribisha my MP, Honorable CPA Ruto, so that he can give his comments or his remarks. Alafu atakaribisha PS. Alafu PS sasa utakaribisha bwana CS. Karibu mheshimiwa.
Thank you so much, our County Secretary for Uasin Gishu, Waziri, because he was serving one time as Waziri Hapa, Philip Matelong. Our Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, FCPA, John Buddy. Our two PSS, Makoa and Odede for investment and asset management for the country, and Makoa for the national planning. Na wananchi watukufu ambao wamejitokeza kwa wingi kufika hapa kwa siku maalum ambaye tumeitwa na waziri wetu wa fedha kuja kujadiliana pamoja masuala ya mipango za kiuchumi, mipango za bajeti yetu ya taifa la Kenya, na kila mmoja ambaye amefika hapa. Bwana asifiwe. Leo ni Jumapili. Bwana asifiwe. I'm sure you must have started this meeting with a word of prayer. Comrades power. Umetulia. Na si soka hapa. Comrade power. O wenye wako huko? O iko njaa? Iko njaa? Ngoja nione saa kwanza. Imefika saa yake? Oh, ndio hiyo. Well, I should be very brief. Today is not my meeting. And first of all, CS Karibu Uasin Gishu. On behalf of the leadership of this county, together from Governor, the elected members of Parliament, Senator, and all those who never met to be here, we want to say Karibu Sana. We want to thank you, Bwana CS. Since day one, you are brought in as a Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury. And we were informed, some of us whom we were in UDA, the bottom-up agenda. And you on the other side, I don't know, the agenda was, we had two different agendas. Ilikuwa shida kwetu kukubali. It took us time to be convinced by the president that it is possible for us to work with the people we were competing against. I remember in the National Assembly, the CS Mbadi was sitting on the other side. Except that he's an accountant like me. And I would listen to him when he takes microphone to talk and agitate or castigate or bring out issue on opposing what the government is saying. We were not ready to work. We were not ready to accept. But who is God? Today, the National Treasury of the Republic of Kenya is sitting at the County Hall of Eldoret. We've had several ministers of the National Treasury there before. The very strong and powerful ones. But at no time did they Lord themselves to come to where our 90 are so that we discuss the national issues together and agree on how to take our nation. Bwana Waziri, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Immediately you ascended to that office, I saw you walking from the National Treasury all the way mpaka Jivanji Garden kwa bunge la wananchi, so that you can have a talk and discussion with wananchi, or now wananchi are viewing and perceiving the affairs of their nation. It should be taken vis-a-vis where the bosses are sitting at the head office, at the boardrooms, and discuss how our nation should be done. Today, on Sunday, you are here in Eldoret. I'm informed that this is not the first county you have visited. You have come through several counties, even from Migori. You are here today, and this week you are still moving across the nation. You as a cabinet secretary, you know, watu wajuangi, waziri yule mwenye ako na security yote, anabebanga ile mkoba, yenye iko na budget yote ya Kenya. A very coveted office. And you are here listening to our wananchi leo wamekuambia maneno yao. And be able to respond to them and speak out to them. Last year, the other year, 2024, I'm in Parliament. All of us know what happened. We almost lost our country on finance bill of 2024. But Waziri, if you would listen, the contentious issues which were being profound at that time, and most of them were information that had already been distorted and is misinformed. But because the CS was sitting in the office and he could not speak about his own finance bill, Macu people would be blaming Parliament. The owner and the originator of the budget and finance bill is this man who is sitting here today. All the proposals is the one who is bringing out. It makes difference for him to come and speak about here in Eldoret, speak about in Nairobi, before when they come to Parliament, so that 190 can enrich it, 190 can support it. Because all of us, we have got one agenda. We want to develop our nation. Right now, Waziri, I've had a student talking about the cost of education. And it's a privilege, I'm sure you'll get a moment, to speak to us about the real cost, the nominal cost of education from ECD, primary, secondary, up to university. Because it is our desire as a nation that education being a basic social security need, it should be as cheap, it should be taken by the government so that we have a literate society. Society with knowledge, society that has acquired literacy, is society that can be progressive. We really want to know where we are going. Lastly, because it's not my time, I've just come to welcome you. I know Kenyans are following. On Tuesday, you appeared in our committee. I sit in the Committee of Finance and National Planning, where we are oversighting the Department of National Treasury. And you came to lay the grounds of why you, as the owner of all and every investment in the Republic of Kenya, up to including the investment in Safaricom, why you think it is that time we need to exercise the assets we have and generate revenue to finance our budget, the deficit in the budget vis-a-vis borrowing that is becoming untenable as we talk right now. I'm sure you must have laid our budget structure. Looking at our budget for financial year 2025-2026, for people who have been keen and following, if you remove the money that are going to counties, around 500 billion, you remove the money that are going to recurrent, almost 1.something billion, that is PE, personnel emolument, and those that are supposed to support the operation of the government, there is an element which is of a priority in nature. It is called consolidated fund services, which has grown to almost 1.4 trillion. The component of that CFS is nothing but repayment of loan interest, not even the principal. And if we continue like this, rest be assured, is either we are going to agree as a Kenya one day and say we stop running the government of the day and pay off the debts and close the nation for 1 year or 2 years without any development. But I don't know where we are going to survive. How will our health services survive? How will our education survive? So we must come to a point of discussing and agreeing together as a nation, not as a person, as a nation, disregarding our boundaries in political persuasions, disregarding our boundaries in religious persuasion, disregarding our boundaries in ethnical persuasion, and agree that as a country, Kenya, with the entire 43 tribes, we must come to a point of honesty and transparency and agree to make a decision, a very tough one, so that we can offload and relieve ourselves from the shackles of the dead. And that is why we are ready to support you. We are ready as a National Assembly to support you. Exercise. The only thing that these Kenyans will be asking Waziri, when you receive this money, with clarity, or where are we going to put this money so that we can see growth of our economy and be able to reinvest back in the future opportunities and we sustain our nation. Otherwise, leo sitasema mengi ya nyumbani, kama kwa niaba ya viongozi na kukaribisha nyumbani. The other day you were here and I'm sure you were able to meet someone na ukasema utarudi. Si waziri ni mtu mzuri amerudi tena leo ama namna gani? Hii maneno ya expert iko sawa sawa, mnaonaje? Iko chonje hii expert. Kwa huyu FCVM body. Wangapi wanakubali serikali iko sawa with the experts coming in? Tuko pamoja. Muinue tena mkono waziri aone. Wangapi we are comfortable with the experts being in the cabinet? Thank you so much. Si namna hiyo. Sio ndio Kenya tunataka? So waziri mkiendelea namna hii, hata hii broad base naona hii watu wamekubali. Tunangojea hiyo maneno mliongea Mombasa, tumalize by May. Hii serikali inakuja tuendeleshe mbele, na tukimaliza yule rais atafuata ni John Badi, si mtu mwingine. Mwenye anaendesha Kenya Treasury William akimaliza, John Badi tuendelee mbele. With that much I've said, allow me now to invite my two PSS. Oded, I see you already come over, and then my PS for Makoa for economic planning. Ile maneno ya CDF mnasemanga si tunakula. Mwenye CDF ni huyu, atawaambia leo. Hii CDF mnasemanga tunakulanga sisi. Huyu ndiye anawekanga, huyu ndiye anafanya board ya NGCDF ni yake, yeye ndiye anaelea committees. Mkiona CDF inafanya mzuri cases ni juu ya huyu. Asante sana, karibu sana. Thank you.
God is good. God is good. And all the time, tusalemeni kwa hewa, please. I didn't know that this hall is that big. When you sit in front, you think we are having only a few people in this hall. Our Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury, the area MP, the Ngao team represented here, my fellow Principal Secretary, Dr. Boniface Makoa, members of Parliament, those who are here, I think some of them have left, members of County Assembly together with the Executive, the business community, student leaders from various institutions of higher learning, distinguished members of Bunge la Wananchi, all invited guests, Wananchi wenzangu, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am delighted to welcome you on behalf of National Treasury to this stakeholders forum here in Uasin Gishu County. The Cabinet Secretary is on tour of the counties with a view to creating a public awareness and seeking public views on the budget-making process and privatization of government-owned enterprises. We started this journey in Migori County, then Kakamega, and now today we are here at the home of champions. Subsequently, this bandwagon will head to Nakuru, Kiambu, Meru, Garissa, and Kilifi counties. This engagement brings together participants representing various interest groups, including the elected leaders, the business community, student leadership, Bunge la Wananchi, among others. This is in tandem with the Constitution requirement for public participation in formulation of government policies, programs, and legislation. Firstly, this forum has given you, the people of this county, a platform to engage the Cabinet Secretary on the benefit of privatization. And I want to tell you that privatization has and will improve efficiency in the management of government-owned enterprises. It will reduce the fiscal burden on the public budget and stimulate economic growth. It is evident that over the years, many government-owned enterprises barely survived on substantial government subsidies due to operational inefficiencies, and the Cabinet Secretary will elaborate on that. The perpetual injection of capital to such entities limits the state's ability to fund critical social services and infrastructure. Through privatization, we are able to attract private capital, cutting-edge technology, and managerial expertise, which enhance productivity, service delivery, and competitiveness. Additionally, privatization of government-owned enterprises supports the development of capital markets, encourage foreign and domestic investments, and align with the broader economic reforms that strengthen our market-driven economy. For your information, the ongoing offloading of government shares from Safaricom and Kenya Pipeline Corporation will help in revenue generation without increasing debts and taxation. Secondly, we are here today to gather your invaluable views on the budget-making process for the financial year 2026-2027, which is already ongoing. Public input is actively sought through consultation forums and submissions to ensure that the budget aligns with the priorities of citizens, and I believe that we will be getting those submissions so that we can look into them. Let me assure you that your views will not only be heard, but they will count, as Waziri will tell you more shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, now let me go to this issue that was raised on AGPO. We have embarked on the rollout of electronic government procurement system, popularly known as EGP, at both national and county level. The implementation and the use of EGP will result in reduced cost of goods, works and services. It will increase transparency in procurement process and practice. It will improve efficiency in procurement. It will maximize the value for money, accountability, improve confidentiality, integrity, authenticity of transactions, and streamline procurement processes. And this will enhance procurement information management that will facilitate procurement planning, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. In this regard, because I think it was raised by National Chamber of Commerce Director, and I want to take only 1 minute in explaining that. The government has reserved 30% of procurement of goods and services to people living with disabilities, youth and women. And for you to access this, you have to register. Access to the government procurement opportunities, that is AGPO. This one is enshrined in the Constitution, and I want to urge the youth and affected population to register under AGPO to benefit from that 30%. I can assure you that almost, I think, only maybe 10% or 5% of all those who are here are registered with AGPO. And for you to access those tenders, how many people are having smartphones? I just want to take 2 minutes. How many people are having smartphones? You have smartphones with you. Can you Google EGP Kenya? I want to tell you today, just as education, so that you can know how to access those things. How many have Googled EGP Kenya? EGP Kenya. Badu, you are there. Then click that one, you will see the window of EGP. Once you see that window EGP, click procurement plan. You will see all that the government has budgeted for the last financial year. This is 2025-2026. Click any state department, even if it is the office of the president. you will see all the things that they are planning to procure this financial year. If you want to know the tender, there is a window on your right, tender. Click tenders. You will see all the tenders that have been published. And that is where the AGPO, those youth, women, and those living with disabilities, you can pick what you want to tender there. Once you tender, it is restricted for you. Nobody else will get all whatever you have you intend to procure for the government. So that is how to go about it. And in this regard, I urge the people of this county to register their companies in EGP system in order to access government procurement. And this also goes to the suppliers, the Chamber of Commerce. I have organized a sensitization to the suppliers, and this will start in February. We are doing together with the Chamber of Commerce so that the suppliers can know how to navigate EGP. Take this opportunity, because if the counties don't spend, if the national government don't spend, then we are affecting the revenue that is supposed to be collected. And again, this is the revenue that the CS is going to budget for. So, you will agree with me that this is one sure way through which our women, youth, and persons with disabilities can benefit from the budgeting process, given that a big chunk of government budget goes to procurement. Having said that, I wish you people fruitful deliberation and ask you to feel free. Engage Cabinet Secretary candidly and share your feedback that is necessary to enrich the budget-making process and privatization process. And with those few remarks, it is now my singular duty and pleasure to invite my fellow Principal Secretary to come and make his remarks, and thereafter invite the Cabinet Secretary now to answer all your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary, the National Treasury, my colleague PS Cyril Odede, county leaders present, Mheshimiwa, Asante for being here, the business community, Bunge la Wananchi, Students Forum, our youth from this great county of Uasin Gishu, government officials present, wananchi wote, I greet you in Jesus' name. Bwana asifiwe. Good, is it morning or afternoon? Good afternoon. Before I start off, CS, allow me just to recognize one of the chair, the chair of one of my parastatals who is here with us, and I'll give reasons why I want him to always attend this engagement. That is Professor Wachana, chair of KIPRA. Tumpigie makofi tafadhali. Young people, are you here? Young people, power. Young people, rear. You know why I'm saying that? It is because KIPRA picks young professionals. These are just a few remarks before I read my official remarks. KIPRA picks every year young professionals, and they pick 30 young professionals who are fully sponsored by the government to be trained for a whole year, 12 months, on matters of policy, policy formulation, policy analysis, and all that data collection, so that their capacities are built to contribute to such a discussion. And we have also 10 who are self-sponsored. But through the leadership of the CS, within our department and together with KIPRA, we are now decided that in this budget and going forward, 30 are not enough. We want to target 3 to 5 per county so that they are trained, they are picked and trained, and they are able to contribute. And the good thing, young people, is that young professionals, as much as you're given is a scholarship, you also earn a stipend per month, 99,000 shillings per month. So tupigie CS makofi. In addition, I heard people ask that CS needs to increase these engagements. I want to assure you, from the Department of Economic Planning, we have heard you. We've been hearing requests for us to move around, especially to showcase success stories. One of the things through the leadership of the CS that we have done, Mheshimiwa, under NGCDF, is to move around and do the monitoring of the projects in the counties and document success stories that we'll be able to release so that people understand what is CDF doing and what is the impact of CDF. And I must tell you, Mheshimiwa, you guys are doing a great job of oversight. For the 14 constituencies we visited, you deserve a clap and a pat on the back. Thank you for the good work. In addition, the CS has rolled out what we are calling Gumzo la Uchumi Mashinani. It will be similar to this to all 47 counties, and we are starting off probably at the end of March or early April. We will move in all 47 counties, and our ambition is to go to all constituencies, sit na bunge la wananchi, sit with the youth, and have a discussion. Give you what we are doing as a government, where are we in terms of better agenda implementation. And then you tell us, are we in the right direction? What do you want us to do differently? That is two. Number 3, we are here CS because of 2 things: budget making process and privatization. And very quickly, I just want to touch on the 2 and say that, you know, budget making process in Kenya is a continuous process. We have 4 phases. Phase number 1, we are looking at budget formulation, which runs from August to February. And within this phase is where we will have what we call the budget circular, the budget review and outlook report. And then we come to sector working groups and public participation. We are still there. And this is why we are here, so that even if sector working groups are working, public participation is key to inform the final decision of what the budget statement will look like. Phase 2 is usually approvals, which runs from March to June. And then phase 3 is implementation, which will run from 1st July to June next year. And the last phase is, of course, the audit. But this first phase is key. I want to implore upon all of us that this is the beginning, but as long as we are still in office, we will be able to be moving around whenever we start this phase 1 of budget formulation. Allow me to read the few remarks I have, and then I will invite the CS. All the stakeholders are here. I want to remind us that Kenya's journey under medium term plan of the Vision 2030 and bottom-up economic transformation agenda is one simple question. And that question is, how do we grow our economy? How do we eradicate poverty? How do we create jobs? And how do we improve services while still living within our means? Today, given the increasing demand for better services, the Kenyan government that you have entrusted us under the leadership of the president to be in is compelled to deliver more under a tight physical space, which is occasioned by limited resources, budget deficits, and increasing public debt. It is worth to note that out of every 100 shillings collected in taxes, approximately 60 goes to servicing debt. On one hand, the government cannot continue raising taxes from Kenyans because evidence shows that higher taxes do not automatically result in increased revenues. On the other hand, we can also not continue with public borrowing. Why? Because it creates a vicious cycle of borrowing to repay. So what is remaining? What is the remaining option for us? This is privatization. And that is why we are here. And we are here from the perspective of economic planning. I want to assure you that privatization is not about selling Kenya. It is about making public assets work harder for the people, reducing pressure on the national budget, improving services, and creating opportunities at grassroots. I want to remind us that Kenya has been in this or worse space than this before. In early 2000, our economy was struggling. Jobs were scarce. Poverty level was high. Services were weak. And the confidence in government was low. The government responded with what was called economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation, 2003-2007. And the strategy that was put in place restored discipline, opened space for private enterprises, focused government on its core role. The result was renewed growth, rising employment, and improved service delivery. The lesson from that period is that when reforms are well planned like this, when reforms are well explained to people, they work for the people. That very time, that is when we had the reform in telecommunication industry. Yeah? And we had government liberalizing private investment and putting in strong regulation that gave birth to what we call Safaricom today. And today, the Safaricom that was privatized, some shares were floated then, is what we are seeing today. And we believe that the way and the direction of government will result in positive results. We are here in this county of Uasin Gishu just to engage you in public dialogue. Public dialogue that builds trust, allows concerns to be heard, and helps government adjust reforms. Your feedback on service quality, affordability, and access is not an obstacle to reforms. It is what makes reforms legislative and successful. Allow me not to continue, but take this opportunity to welcome the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable
Badibiro, Badimwamo, Pinyolo Rojatelo. Badibiro, Badimwamo, Pinyolo Rojatelo. Badibiro, Badimwamo, Pinyolo Rojatelo. Badibiro, Badimwamo, Pinyolo Rojatelo. Kinene, Tineno Ruto, Nyolo Rojatelo. Kinene, tineno Ruto pinyo luoro jatelo. Oni badi biro badi muomo pinyo luoro jatelo. Badi biro badi muomo pinyo luoro jatelo. Kinene tineno Ruto pinyo luoro jatelo. Kinene tineno Ruto pinyo luoro jatelo. Oni badi biro badi muomo pinyo luoro jatelo. Badi biro badi muomo pinyo luoro jatelo. Kiyude tiyudo Ruto pinyo luoro jatelo. Kiyude tiyudo Ruto pinyo luoro jatelo. Kinene tineno Ruto.
Thank you. Aya. Tukae, kaeni. Aya. Thank you. Tukae. Let's have our seats, please. Eldoret oye! Eldoret oye! Eldoret TV! Vijana viva! Comrades power! Thank you. Aya. So, you will allow me first to make my official speech. Alafu ndachukua muda kidogo sana. I speak off the cuff. Alafu nitamalizia hapo. Mmeniruhusu? Asante. So representatives from the University Students Association, esteemed student members, members of the business community, members of the Bunge la Wananchi, Member of Parliament for Keses constituency, my friend, professional colleague and brother Julius Ruto, my two principal secretaries, the county commissioner, ambaye leo sisi ni wageni wake, the county government led by the county secretary and members of county assembly represented here, other distinguished guests, wafanyikazi wa serikali ya juu na ya county. Kuna mtu nimewanja nje? Jua kali sector, Bunge la Wananchi, the business community. Wacha nimalizie kusema distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First, I want to make it clear that this process that we are undertaking today, this engagement, is not an academic exercise. We have deliberately made a decision as National Treasury to engage the public. When I got into this office, I made a promise to the people of Kenya that I'm going to demystify what National Treasury is all about and make it an institution that interacts with the people we serve, because we work for you. And therefore, the exercise that we are carrying out today, which began from Migori, is going to cover 7 regions of this country if you leave out Nairobi. But we are going to have 8 engagements. For Nyanza region, we had the engagement in Migori. For the Western region, yesterday we were in Kakamega. Today we are here for the North Rift region because Rift Valley is very expansive. From here, we will have engagement in Nakuru for the South and Central Rift. And then I will proceed to Kiambu for the Central region. Lastly, we will have the last leg, which will begin from Garissa for the Northern Kenya region. We go to Kilifi for the Coast region. And finally, we will end with Meru for the Eastern region. During these engagements, we will be listening to Kenyans, especially the young people, because the youth form 75% of our population. That is a population that you cannot ignore. That is a population that you must engage and listen to continuously to adjust your policies and adjust your programs to fit in the interest of that segment of our population. Allow me to mention the following. That I want to start by extending to you a warm welcome to this stakeholder engagement forum. And I wish to thank you all for finding time to attend this very critical event that provides us with an opportunity to share our views on the management of public resources in the country, and particularly in the budget process, more so as it relates to our development agenda. This process builds up onto not only from the meeting that I held on the 10th of December 2025 in Nairobi, where I launched the National Budget Students Forum with the sole purpose of embedding a youth-centric perspective into our national economic decision-making processes, but is also from my previous engagements with Bunge la Wananchi on budget process. I'm sure you still remember my engagement at Jivanji Garden last year. And that engagement proceeded or went on to Mombasa, and we even held an engagement in Kibra at night to just discuss our public policy issues as regarding the budget making process. So during this launch, which took place on 10th of December, it was agreed on the need for a wider engagement with the youth of this country in their respective regions on matters pertaining to public finance management. But further to that, further to engaging with the youth, in view of the recent government efforts on privatization, it has also been deemed fit to broaden this engagement to include the business community and the Bunge la Wananchi for a more comprehensive stakeholder information and participation. That is why today, apart from the youth, we are also here with representation or representatives from the business community and also representatives from Bunge la Wananchi and even the county governments and the national government, so that we can understand what is this animal in the room called privatization. And I will come to that when I'm making my off-the-cuff remarks, so that you can understand what the government of Kenya is trying to do. To avoid listening to distortions from the naysayers, I am sure I will be capable enough to address some of your concerns and fears regarding the proposed actions that we want to take, and more particularly regarding the divestiture of most shares in Safaricom and also the privatization proposal for the Kenya Pipeline Company. The successful engagement with the Bunge la Wananchi in the last financial year, as I mentioned, could only be built upon. Feedback from that engagement and feedback from the membership of the Bunge la Wananchi, it was agreed that engagement must continue. The National Treasury's engagement with members of the business community is also not new. Under my watch, it has definitely been enriching in shaping my resolve to have in place more inclusive policies that allow more Kenyans to participate in public resource management. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to emphasize that this is not just a policy initiative, but rather it is a legal obligation which is rooted in our Constitution, Article 201A of the Constitution of Kenya, which mandates for public participation in all financial matters so as to enhance transparency, accountability, efficient utilization of resources, and value for money in the management of our public resources. At the National Treasury, we have come to the realization that the government alone cannot effectively respond to the multifaceted challenges facing our country, particularly on unemployment, gaps in skills development, digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and inclusive governance for a demographic dividend. In this regard, I have prioritized stakeholder participation as a key dimension of governance and one of the pillars for a sustainable development. We shall enhance collaboration with our stakeholders, including the youth, private sector, experts, civil society organizations, volunteers, and local communities, which is ever more critical in our public discourse. By forging partnerships and collaboration, the government will harness the ideas, skills, and resources to diverse stakeholders to better deliver services and policies in transformative ways and address the existing gaps in financial, human, and technical resources. I wish again to reiterate that the youth are a significant demographic of our country, making up over 75% of the population with a potential for contributing towards economic development of the country. And in this regard, their voices must be central to how we plan, allocate, and utilize our resources. This has therefore necessitated a shift in public financial management towards inclusive and participatory governance, where citizens, including youth, actively engage and participate in policy formulation and act as co-creators of government policies and services. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya has adopted privatization as a strategic economic policy shift to promote efficiency in the economy by subjecting more services to market forces, to improve competitiveness, revenue generation, aid in fiscal consolidation pathway by reducing government spending on inefficient state corporations, and market development in deepening Kenya's capital market. So the objective of our privatization agenda is to ease the burden of governance of these institutions from the government to the private sector, who are better equipped for the market economy. The National Treasury will in this regard continue with sound macroeconomic policies to enhance resilience and create a conducive environment for the private sector to thrive, including the local business communities. This strategic response is anchored in our bottom-up economic transformation agenda and also on the fourth medium-term plan, MTP4. And these frameworks prioritize sectors with high youth employment potential, such as agriculture, micro, small, and medium enterprises, housing, healthcare, and of course, the digital and creative economy. And these sectors are not only engines of growth, but also platforms for innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation for the youth. So over the recent past, the youth of this country have expressed themselves over important national issues, which include high cost of living, unemployment, and governance transparency. We still remember vividly 2024, more particularly what would have turned out as a dark day in this country. That was the 25th of June 2024. What the youth of this country were protesting about was the issue of high or rising cost of living. Number two, the youth were also complaining about unemployment. They are coming out of colleges with good certificates. Their parents have exchanged ng'ombe with papers, certificates. Papers which should help them better their lives. Papers that should help them get job opportunities. But alas, when they come out, there are no employment opportunities available. The other thing that the youth were complaining about was the issue of governance and transparency. The youth is telling us that they are not happy with the way we are using their resources, that we must change, that we must adopt transparency, that we must adopt accountability, that we must adopt prudent use of public resources. These concerns are valid. These concerns demand for immediate action. We cannot just sit and watch as students complain, as youth complain, and as they express themselves. And that is why the government must be committed to transforming the frustrations that our youth are going through into constructive dialogue and tangible action. We must dialogue with our youth. We must act on their demands. We must put to the best our ability to make sure that we transform these frustrations into productive engagement for the betterment and progress of our country. This forum, therefore, provides one of those perfect opportunities to provide our feedback on the necessary action from the government to address these challenges. So during this process, we will welcome positive critique of our public financial management systems and policies to shape the budget process. Your active engagement in this process will ensure efficient and transparent use of public funds, ensuring that resources are allocated to address youth empowerment and that the allocation achieves the intended objectives. So, ladies and gentlemen, during the launch of this process, I was elated and I was very happy to have received a written memorandum outlining some practical measures through which we can enhance financial support for students in tertiary institutions. And just to make you comfortable, just by engaging in that at that initial stages, I wish to report that if you go and you Google, I know you said you don't have bundles, but you can combine your strengths and Google National Treasury website. If you go and check the National Treasury website, and you look at the BPS, Budget Policy Statement for 2026, which we will be tabling in Parliament in February, you will see that the allocation for Higher Education Loans Board is moving from what was provided in 2025, last year, or the year that is yet progressing, the current financial year. We provided 41 billion Kenya shillings for Higher Education Loans Board. That is proposed to increase by about 40%, from 41 billion to 58 billion. And the university scholarship, that part which is not loan, is also proposed to increase from about 16 billion this financial year to 34 billion in the next financial year. That therefore means that the two, if you add 16 billion to 41 billion, that is 57, and is likely to move from 57 to 92 billion, the two figures put together. That is a reaction to the concerns that we have got from the students. Directly, we are responding. And by the way, the budget for education is going to increase with not less than 50 billion shillings in the next financial year. But we are working on the figures and looking at our budget to see if we can even make more resources available for education, because a society that does not care and invest in education of their population is a society that is destined to collapse. That's not a society that would make progress. So we have noted the feedback, which includes strengthening financial support for student financing, as I mentioned, reforming students' loan financing through fiscal policy, targeted student grant funding for vulnerable students, facilitate provision of affordable student accommodation, and I have taken note of the Eldoret National Polytechnic that requires more accommodation facilities, and establishing an emergency student support fund. This will be consolidated alongside the views from the other regions for consolidation during the preparation of the financial year 2026-27 and the medium-term budget process. Furthermore, we are aware of the financial strains facing our public institutions, which impact the quality of education and future prospects of our youth. Our strategy emphasizes increasing funding, infrastructure development, and curriculum reforms to equip students with skills relevant to the evolving job market, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence, data science, green technologies, and finally, vocational trades. So those are the areas that we are going to target. Artificial intelligence, because we are living in a global community which is moving very fast in terms of technology. We must keep pace. Data science is an area that we must invest in. Green technologies is another area of investment. And of course, the vocational trades. We must learn as a country to accept that vocational training is an integral part of any societal development. If you go to those countries which pride themselves of having developed, you will realize that employment is not a problem because people don't choose jobs. Today in Kenya, I would tell you, those of us who have tried to get services of plumbers, electricians, and the rest, I will tell you they are difficult to find today because of the affordable housing. I have a plumber who has been working for me for many years. When I wanted to get his engagement, he told me, Waziri, I'm sorry, I'm so busy, I have too much work. He used to be very idle. Today, that gentleman is not as idle as he used to be. I have to now plead with him to squeeze some time for me. That is the country that we should live in, where all trades have something, where all people with different expertise have something to do, have something to offer to the economy. And I will come back to that. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're aware, the government has been in the process of formulating 2026-27 financial year budget and also the medium term. We have, in this regard, prepared a draft 2026 budget policy statement containing the proposed policies and resource limitations for the period. That is the resource envelope. It's already on our website. This document has already been uploaded on the National Treasury website for public review and comments. I am looking forward to receiving valuable comments from you to inform its finalization before we submit it finally to Parliament by mid-February. I wish to urge for your concerted effort to enable us build a Kenya where opportunities are accessible to all, where youth are empowered to lead, and where our collective aspirations become reality. Together, we can forge a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient nation. On privatization, and I'm drawing to a close. I'm back in very few papers. Then it has sema machache off the cuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, on privatization, I have this to say. Privatization is often part of a broader process of structural reform. Privatization transactions are complex and require careful consideration of a number of issues. Well-designed and implemented privatization policies are essential to ensure credibility of reforms, to help governments achieve their objectives, and to create efficient and competitive markets for goods and services. Privatization of state-owned enterprises ushers in the private sector to participate in commercial activities that government-owned enterprises are taking. This is necessary because the private sector carries out commercial activities more efficiently than public sector, especially in competitive industry. By the way, I hope you are aware that you as individuals and your private businesses are included when I make reference to the private sector. It's not some strange animal somewhere. If you can do some small business, you are also in the space of the private sector. The benefits of privatization include, but is not limited to, the following. 1, lower prices, better quality of goods and services produced, wider choices for consumers, more innovation, minimal red tape in decision making, and of course, less corruption. That is the value and virtues which the private sector bring into business. Less corruption. To safeguard these benefits of privatization, the government has a social obligation to maintain a fair business environment through appropriate regulations and policies. Already, Kenya has developed a fairly robust regulatory environment with the Competition Authority of Kenya overseeing all sectors of the economy, supported by sector-specific regulators such as Communications Authority of Kenya. So privatization as a key tool to address the following 3 main or major economic issues. That is, balancing of government debts, public expenditure rationalization, and revenue raising, which we also call revenue mobilization. So we talk about revenue mobilization, we talk about expenditure rationalization, and we talk about government debt. In this regard, a robust program must be designed to address fiscal sustainability challenges by limiting government debt, constraining budget deficits, that is reducing budget deficit. And that is one of the questions that one of us asked, that what are we doing to make sure that we correct the messes of the past? 1, we are limiting government debt. 2, we are constraining budget deficits. And we are promoting counter-cyclical fiscal policy. Having pursued in the past few years, fiscal consolidation, the policy has now reached optimal levels and hence cannot be pushed further. Kenyans are saying they are choking. We are overtaxing them. We cannot continue to tax Kenyans anymore. And what I mean here is not that you are not going to pay taxes. What I'm saying is that we cannot continue increasing taxation. If anything, now we must look for ways of reducing the tax burden on Kenyans. That is what you expect. You don't expect any more taxes to be loaded onto your pay slips or your businesses. In fact, yesterday I said, well, in Kakamega, that if you are someone who has gone to school to learn matters taxation, one of the principles of taxation is that you target wealth. You target rich. After targeting wealth is when you can come to income. Income should attract the least tax. And finally, the segment that should not even be taxed is trade. Trade should never be taxed. So we should try as much as possible to reduce taxes on trade. Let people do business, make their money, and expand those businesses. You know, when you have more money, you expand business and you create jobs. That is the only way you can create jobs. By allowing people who are doing business or who are in trade to do business and expand their, make money, use that money to expand their businesses and employ more people. That is the only way to create jobs. And that is probably one of the areas we are not getting it right. That is why you find our unemployment levels continue to rise. We need to look at that area very carefully. And I've tasked my team at the National Treasury to see how we can make trade more friendly in terms of tax policies. You will agree with me that unlike taxation, privatization can never reduce private sector wealth. Taxation reduces people's wealth, but privatization does not. Instead, it encourages propensity to invest and enhances aggregate demand, which in the long run would widen the revenue base. So, privatization does not reduce wealth. Instead, it enhances wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wind up, I want to just mention that our economy, the Kenyan economy, is at a critical turning point. And to sustain the economic achievements that have been realized thus far, both from macro and fiscal perspectives, like lower inflation, lower interest rates, currency stabilization, GDP growth, we must turn to innovative financing mechanisms to fund our infrastructure and public service projects. As the financial needs of the government continue to outpace our available public resources, private sector participation has become a critical tool in addressing infrastructure gaps, enhancing service delivery, and promoting sustainable development. There are many success stories. I know one of us spoke about cases where privatization has failed. And indeed, it is true. There have been previous attempts to privatize some government institutions with disastrous outcomes, like Uchumi Supermarket. But probably one of the reasons why Uchumi failed and others which have failed is because of the timing. Privatization, if you don't time it perfectly, then you definitely fail. Have come today, Safaricom was privatized several years to Vodacom. That subsidiary came and invested in Kenya and formed a subsidiary, called Vodafone Kenya. So it is Vodafone Kenya which owns 40% today of Safaricom. 60% saw it fit that the government was still too heavy in Safaricom and decided to release more ownership of Safaricom. But at that time, a decision was made to release it to people, to individuals, Kenyans, and those international investors, but individuals. This individual was made to release it to people, to individuals, Kenyans, and those international investors, but individuals. These individuals, percent of ownership of Safaricom from the government. Today, the government has only 35%. But the kind of